Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Replenish Earth Speaker Series, where we explore climate action through innovative and incredible speakers. Today marks the fourth day of London Climate Action Week, where we drive the national and international climate policy response, prioritizing green recovery in 4 very specific areas. We're looking at green, fair, resilient recovery. We're looking at roadmaps to COP26, sustainable and net zero London, and whole society climate mobilization. I'm Tia Kansara, and we are going to be exploring the question, how do we amplify nature, produce more from less without using chemicals? Join us as we explore this with Harvest Harmonics, a business with a twist. Today, we're hosting Francesco Arlia Jr., a certified public accountant who specializes in forensic and defense cases. He has a best-selling book, The Tax Detective, and has an accounting firm that holds a no-loss record in defending clients in audits and forensic cases. So this is a really fascinating shift into the work that he does with Mr. Balmelli, who he met in Italy. I won't tell you any more about that. I'm going to invite Frank on stage, and welcome to Replenish Earth Live, Frank.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and a pleasure to be part of your purpose here. This is amazing. Replenish Earth, I love it.
Thank you very much. When we were sort of introduced through a really interesting web of people that connect us across countries, and the chances of coming across you are really quite interesting, in that the work that you're doing would not normally be in sight, because you're doing it in an industry that I'm not normally part of. And I feel that we were sort of meant to come together and have this conversation and get excited about the work that you're doing. Frank, when we talk about food, and we talk about food technology, and we talk about the agricultural industry, we don't often relate it to specifically health or preventative health. And I think your story is one of the most endearing stories, that you were on a mission to help your mom. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, by the way, thank you for the wonderful introduction. I am a forensic accountant. I do have an extensive background in defense cases and research and investigations. And back in 2013, my mom, unfortunately, had come down with a terminal illness, and she was given only a few months to live. And I couldn't have that, it was like I couldn't face the fact that I could be losing my mom, and she was so young. So I started scouring the internet, researching, reaching out to friends of mine. And then one of my Italian friends that I met in Florida told me that there was a medical center called Biomedic Center in Como, Italy. And he said, look, if there's anyone that can figure out how to save her life, it'll be them. And if they can't do it, I don't know what to tell you. So after all the research that I had done, I reached out to them. They asked me to send her medical records. I translated them from English into Italian, because I speak fluent Italian. I could read and write in Italian. And so, and even though I'm first generation American, but I did all of this. I sent it over to Italy, and they basically told me that, look, she was in bad shape, but if I got her there fast, they could save her. So the adventure started. I convinced my mom. We made it to Italy. We get there, and within 1 hour, they were able to pinpoint exactly where this bacteria that was deteriorating her body was coming from, and pinpoint it, and then, you know, start a 33-day therapy where they told me that they were definitely going to save her life. And so, you know, what she had consistent congestive heart failure. And anyone who has consistent congestive heart failure only has 3 to 4 months to live. She had already had 3 attacks 3 months in a row. So long story short, they saved her life. While I was there during, you know, tax season, it was February into March 2014, I was monitoring what they were doing and how they were doing it. And it's like a medical center you've never seen before. It's completely different than anything here in the United States. And so I was inquiring what, you know, to learn more about this technology, and they were asking me questions about, you know, what I do. And it seemed like I was being interviewed at some point, you know? And so, because every day it became more and more business questions and accounting questions, and it was just very interesting. Sure enough, Mr. Balmelli eventually said, look, I have this technology. I have many technologies, but I can't get them out to the world because I'm too busy saving people's lives. I need someone to help me. Would you help me? And I said, look, you saved my mother's life. I will do anything for you. Anything. I mean, that was my answer.
You got me. I'll do it.
You had me at hello, you know? So, and that started this conversation that then led into some of these technologies. And as he had a water technology and a diet technology, and they're all related to health. And I thought they were all fantastic. But then he said to me, he said, I have one technology. It's not ready yet. It's going to take a lot more money before it's finished. But it's the key to everything, because it would turn around the whole world. So I said, all right, what is that? So he says, it's an agricultural technology. And he said, I figure if I can fix the food problem, that would set a foundation for the health problem. In other words, if people were eating more nutritious, healthier food, they would have less medical issues. And the problem with food is it's been invaded by too many chemicals, by too many processes. We're caught in this catch-22. And I looked at this and I said, you know, I always had this interest. Of agriculture, because my great-grandfather and my grandfather in Italy, they were farmers. And we had a farm back in Italy that I grew up on, you know, in my summers growing up until my mid 40s, you know, and I go to Italy on a regular basis, so I visit. But I told him I would take that on, and I would even fund it, because it was that important. And so I took on this, you know, call it a project that then, you know, after 5 years of R&D, and millions and millions of dollars invested, we finally finished a micro transmitter system that basically puts out 3,000 plus frequencies, radio waves of various types, to plants through an irrigation system that allows the plant to enhance its root structure, enhance its nutrient absorption, and significantly enhance its ability to process photosynthesis more efficiently. And the results have been amazing. You know, more nutrient dense food, a more abundant food. You know, we're seeing results we never even expected. You know, it's beyond our expectations. We knew that it was going to deliver what we promised, but it's been delivering above and beyond, you know, what we were expecting. And it seems to be that Mr. Balmelli developed this perfect system of getting these radio waves that are very synergistic to the plants and to the plant and its environment, to the point that it's just a natural process. You know, it's like there's no ridge, there's no the plant isn't fighting against anything. It's so natural to the plant that the plant just benefits from it and continues to benefit from it. I mean, that's the simplest way I can explain it. It's almost like imagine having a conversation, and this is a completely different analogy, right? Imagine having a conversation with someone who's easy to talk to. You know, you have a nice conversation, right? And so imagine having a conversation with someone who's difficult to speak to. It's not as free flowing, right? So it may not be the right analogy, but we have discovered a natural way for plants to grow. That's it. That's the simplicity of it. We don't have to over-fertilize them. We don't have to use all these chemicals. We don't have to all these band-aids, all these ideas, all these you know, they're not a necessity anymore.
But it's so strange because we, you know, in our heads is this is necessary. Roundup is necessary. Get rid of the weeds.
Yeah, my understanding with all of that, and I'll give you an example. You need to get rid of the weeds. This is the way it's explained to me by the farmers themselves, because they're the ones who are dealing with. They know what's important to them. The weeds pull away nutrients. Okay, so you need to get rid of the weeds because they pull away the nutrients that are in the soil that the plant itself needs to grow. So in the old days, they pulled the weeds, and that was fine. In current day, they use chemicals. What we've discovered is that there's actually enough nutrients for both species.
So instead of taking one away or saying like selfishly that I want to keep these nutrients only for that which I want to grow, right? You know, what we're saying is that there's an abundance for both.
There's absolutely an abundance for both. But the farmers, you know, with 30, 40, 50 years of doing what they've been doing, because they don't know any better. This is what they've been taught. This is what's passed down generation to generation. You can't really blame them. They're trying to survive. You know, I mean, I have not met a farmer in 6 years that is not a wonderful person, an amazing person who is doing his job and feeding the world. You know, there is the famous write-up by, it'll come to me. You know, God made a farmer. You know, and it's a beautiful thing because these men and women are amazingly doing one of the toughest jobs in the world, if not the toughest job in the world, and they don't make this great amount of money. Number one, and number two, it's rough on them too. You know, them dealing with these chemicals, it's not healthy for them and their families. And they know it.
It's sort of like, coming back to what you were saying about, this technology that has been discovered. In the name, I think, of harmonics, I think there is, some level of description. What do you mean by harmonics?
Well, it was what basically happened, how we came up with Harvest Harmonics was I originally had the original company was called Organic Earth Tech. And that was a name that I came up with, but nobody would really talk to us. I mean, farmers were like, "Hey, we're not organic. Goodbye," And so it was, and then we knew that 95% of the world was not organic. So we did some research, and this company that we hired was very expensive. They did the extensive research, and they came up with the name Harvest Harmonics because the harmonics part of it, relates directly with the fact that we're using radio waves, and they're low-level radio waves that are not harmful in any way, shape, or form, neither to the environment nor to the plants. And we have actual scientific studies on our website that document that.
There's some level of recognition of what is ultimately what is this idea of harmonization. So we use it a lot in Replenish Earth, like in harmony with nature, right? Like we say that if you're in harmony with nature, then you have a multitude of different instruments all playing their own tune at that endpoint, orchestrated through nature, but has its representation in the harmonization process. So we're all here together, different weeds, not weeds or whatever, but playing to the tune of a harmony.
Yeah, well, look, everything in nature, everything in life, okay, has a vibratory frequency. I mean, everything is made of atoms. Atoms vibrate.
Right. Fundamental.
The table,
everything.
The table that my computer is sitting on is made of atoms. Those atoms, even though this table is solid brass and marble, it still has a vibratory frequency that without special equipment, you couldn't measure it. But with the special equipment, you can measure it. So the environment has millions of vibratory frequencies. Plants are dealing with thousands of vibratory frequencies, different minerals, different elements, and processes. There are vibratory frequencies to processes, right? Like photosynthesis is a process. There's a vibratory frequency that goes along with it. So,
it's almost quite woo-woo, isn't it? It's kind of like what the idea of there being some level of connection in the physics of it, right? In the biology of it, in the chemistry of what is nature. It's
actually not woo-woo. It sounds it, but it's really not, because you have this toy. It's called a cell phone.
Right.
You can do a video call on it. Most people don't even know how it's possible, but they know it's possible because they've done it. But they don't realize that every time they click, there's a radio wave, okay, a frequency that's being transmitted from that to a cell tower, then to a satellite, and then transferred somewhere locally or internationally, and then translated back onto somebody else's phone. And that's how a conversation happens. But you don't see it. You don't see the waves going. Right.
Wireless technology isn't visible, but it's there.
Yeah. And everyone knows it's there because they know the cell phone works. So, we've done double-blind tests where we turn around and we say, look, we're going to send you our technology, and we want you to send us water samples from different fields. Okay? And then the ones that you install our technology on, we're going to report back to you that the technology is working because we know that it's in the water sample. And so
you're doing the tests in the laboratory. You're getting the samples of water, taking it to the laboratory and doing those tests.
With every installation that we do, no matter where the farm is in the world, anywhere in the world that we do an installation, what has to happen is once the installation is done, they run the irrigation system. They send a sample of that water, a little vial. It's about 10 drops of water. And they overnight that to our laboratory in Italy. Then we test the water and we verify that the installation was done perfectly. Because if they didn't install it correctly, then the frequencies won't be in the water. But we also tell the farmer that they should do a double-blind test with us. They should send us samples of water that don't have the frequencies in it and find out from us. Tell us, this is Kiminasi 1, Kiminasi 2, Kiminasi 3. Only one of them has the frequencies, and then we'll tell them which one it is. And then that's how they know. Just like they can't see the waves here. They're going to know that. How did you know? Well, we know because we're the only people in the world that have the equipment to program this technology.
Wow.
Nobody in the world has this equipment. And we built the machinery. We built the programming. I wish I could say I did it, but I didn't. It was my partner that did it. Mr. Balmelli is a genius beyond genius. And basically, we tell them, hey, look, this one didn't have the frequencies and this one didn't have the frequencies. And they verify, yes, because it was just plain water. And that's how
it's good that you're doing the double blinds, because otherwise they wouldn't believe it. And potentially someone could say, well, there's some level of corruption there in the water supply.
Exactly. Now, if they send us 3 samples and one of them has the technology and 2 of them don't, and all 3 of them come back negative, then we know they did the installation incorrectly. Now we have to tell them to reinstall and resend samples. But that's never really happened. It's actually happened one time. And it's not a big deal. They just redo the installation. The technology it's simple to install and simple to apply. It's actually a very simple system, but it's so advanced that it's expensive to produce. But on the production side, it's very affordable for the farmers, and ultimately, when they start using it, they realize it's far more than just affordable. They realize that this is what's going to save their farms and help them produce better products, more nutritious products, healthier for them and their families, because they don't have to be exposed to all the chemicals and the herbicides and pesticides. It's over time, it's taken 40, 50, 60, 70 years to really destroy this planet. We've done a pretty good job to our water supply. So many chemicals in our water supply now. We've done a pretty good job of damaging ourselves. But that's what Replenish Earth is working on, right? Waking up the powers that be and the people that are contributing to and putting together like-minded people to work together to meet each other. I watched your episode with the gentleman who has the trees measuring the vibratory frequencies of the trees. And I'm very familiar with that type of technology. I was super impressed with him. What an amazing man, you know? So someday, if you can do an introduction, that would be great.
Yeah, with pleasure. And I'm sure he would absolutely love to know that you watched his live. I think the opportunities that we have to grow our community of people who are making a difference is beyond anything that we could have imagined. Of course, there is always talk about, are we really going to make an impact? Is this really important? The questions about whether climate change is an anthropogenic, cause, right? Like, is it caused by humans? Ultimately, things are changing, and whether we believe or we don't believe, this is not about a belief. It's about what we're seeing and how we can use the information that we're gathering from our environment. It's less about whether you got faith in something or not. That's a very personal issue. But I think that we need to recognize what is personal and what is personally sort of observed, right? Something that is a subjective experience in situ. When you're there, you're seeing it. If you're seeing and smelling the fires outside in California, for example, you're getting a first-hand experience of something. And what happens is often that there is a very different, relationship with something when it's not personal. How can you believe something that's not happening to you?
Yeah, and speaking of personal, right? Think about it. Think about it from the viewpoint of the farmer, right? We have our viewpoint that we want to help, we want to change, we want to, improve because we have to, right? The farmer, in his viewpoint, he would love to also, but it's not real to him. It's not real to him because economically, it hasn't been that way for 50, 60 years. This is the way it's done. As soon as they start using our technology, they start realizing, wait a minute, we don't have to do it that way anymore. It's almost like a brain teaser. And they, some of the farmers I've dealt with it, they go through months of disbelief. But then they see their trees, or they see their tomatoes, or they see their peppers and their eggplants just growing, and they don't have an explanation other than the technology must be working, And so we tell them, test it, do soil testing, do tissue sampling, do product nutrient density tests. Do it. Spend a couple of dollars and do all the science you want. All you're going to notice is that your product is getting better, your farm's soil is getting better, okay? Your environment is improving, and all that you did was start using our technology. And so they're starting to do that. They're starting to do the science because it's too much of a, I've been doing it this way for 50 years, and now, you're
think about the normal, right? Like something becomes so normal to you that any alternative is abnormal to you or discomfortable, like this discomfort that you experience in having the opportunity to do something differently, and or holding different perspectives of what could happen, right? Like people believe in something specific, and that's informed by curiosity. It could be informed by faith. It could be informed by stories of the past, or what they've inherited. It could be that my father, my mother, my grandparents, their generations before them have continued a story or a narrative or a belief, and that has become the norm. So today we have a reduced number of people that have tasted organic by birth, right? We've got a reduced number of people who 80 years ago didn't have chemicals in their products that they would have to worry about. Like they were born into organic by default.
Exactly.
It's only recently that we've become even more aware of the works of people like Rachel Carson's, The Silent Spring, exploring what kind of chemicals are in the environment. I mean, Roundup is being used as a poison for weeds, but then it's also used as poisons for humans who are committing suicide because they can't handle the reduction, in the actual harvest of the food that they would expect, especially if you've got climatic conditions that are reducing their yield, or you've got increased amounts of one-time only harvest seeds.
Right. Yeah, look, here's the one thing that we can rest assured on. This company, okay, is moving forward super fast. And it's our goal to have the entire planet back to an organic state in 10 years. Like, that's how fast we're moving. We are already expanding very quickly in India. South America, we're in 9 countries, so I think 11 at this point. Okay. The United States is starting to open up very rapidly. And it's just a matter of time because people start realizing that there's alternatives. And it's like anything else. You have the innovators. The innovators want something new that's going to help, right? That's what an innovator does. If it's going to help me and it's new, I want to try it, and if it wasn't for the innovators, we'd all be in trouble, because no product would get off the ground. It has to start with the innovators. And so, who are the innovator farmers? It's a lot of the organic guys are the innovators, and so like you said, it's something that's personal to them. It's got to become interesting and a desire of theirs, and it has to support their survival.
I think one of the big questions that is coming up in my mind at the moment is, how do you go from, this is my entire sort of decision-making process when I go out to purchase something, and many of us are given the information through ads, or we're giving information through a variety of different advertising means, and we make decisions to go and purchase something. So sometimes where information, we literally just finished a talk with Professor Moran Surf, who was talking about how if you're not the one who is using your brain, somebody else is. Like, literally, you've got to be in charge of what you're thinking about. And sometimes you're not, because it's being supplanted and, interrupted with a variety of different technologies that are there to grab your attention over here, or, make you think in a particular manner. So it's really fascinating how people can actually even ask those very simple questions when it comes to food and preventative health. What can people be thinking about, even if they're not particularly a farmer, purchasing the technology and or understanding that there are alternative ways of creating organic food without chemicals? Like, where can a person like myself be thinking about food in a way that's different to whatever normal is?
Well, we discussed this in great detail 6 months ago, and we realized that nothing really changes rapidly until the public demands it. Once the public demands it, then all of a sudden everyone's listening, because that's who the consumer is. So when the public starts saying, hey, I heard about this Kimi Nasi fruits and vegetables. I'd like to buy some to their grocer. And the grocer's like, okay. So he calls his distributor and says, who's this? We need, my customers are asking for Kimi Nasi fruits and vegetables. They go and they start looking up and they say, wait a minute, high nutrient dense fruits and vegetables. High nutrient dense fruits and vegetables. Wow. Like this is new. I've never heard of this. All of a sudden, now that becomes like a grassroots thing, because the public is making a demand. The public wants something. And when they want something, the public gets it because they are the ultimate consumer. So the public has to decide they're done with the chemicals. They're done with, if they're done with the GMO, then they're done with it.
But they may not know that there is GMO in their food, right? Like they may not know that like often when you're buying something,
right.
You don't think that this is, organic or not in the food. Let's say you're in a restaurant, hopefully they have supplied you with healthy food. But let's say this isn't, something that comes immediately to your brain, right? Like how do you take something that is behind the scenes onto your plate?
It really does come down to that demand. It is, just like there's the innovators in any industry, there's the innovator public that says, I want this. This is what I want. And they start asking for it. So with time, it's like this exponential snowball, right? Things, we keep, getting the technology and selling it to farmers, and farmers keep benefiting. And then farmers keep reporting the increased nutrient density. And I'll tell you why, because they're actually charging more money now. We have farmers in South America that raise their prices because we told them you need to test your fruits and vegetables and see that they have more nutrient density. And when they realized it, because they tasted them, they see they were sweeter. Then they tested them and found out that they were more nutrient dense. So what did they do? They sold them for 54 cents a pound more.
Ooh.
Yeah, but the public was willing to pay for something that was a better quality. So eventually, when you get more and more and more and more farmers doing this, what's going to happen is the price will level out. Okay, the price will level out, and it'll be fair pricing and good food for everyone. I mean, that's what we're going for. We're not stopping until we achieve that. And we're like a train moving at 300 miles per hour. We've only launched 13 months ago. In 13 months, again, we're in India. We're just starting up in Australia. The United States, Mexico.
And it's such a variety of different places as well, different cultures and different methods of even understanding the agricultural industry. Like, what kind of cultural factors are coming into the work that you're doing?
Oh, it's interesting that the farmers are all reacting the same way. They can't. It's like, their eyes go 2 inches wide when they see the results. Because initially it's woo woo. They're not very believing. They just can't. They cannot conceptually understand that a radio wave can create this effect. But it's not just an ordinary radio wave. It's over 3,000 radio waves, okay, that are specific to every part of the plant's most important elements. Most important.
I feel like I want to be in that machine and just get zapped by, 3,000 radio waves and just come out like, gleaming.
You are in London, my dear, and you can jump on a plane and be in Como, Italy in a matter of, I think, 2.5 hours?
I just have to say, you're speaking to the wrong person. I've been to Lago di Como many a time, and I would totally jump on a plane if COVID was, something.
Oh yes, of course.
Not an issue, and I wasn't in lockdown. But yeah, it's one of my favorite places in the world. Lago di Como is.
Well,
I'm coming though.
no, absolutely, because it was all of this was born out of a medical technology. You can even call it a medical technology for plants.
Right. It's almost like it's like food medicine.
Yeah, and it's basically you would call it that, but the science behind it as a conceptual idea, right? But the science behind it really deals with the metabolism of the plant. Okay, so it's dealing with having these 3,000 plus radio waves that are they're basically provided through the irrigation system to the plant. If the plant doesn't need it, if they don't need, if they only need 50, 75, 350 of those radio waves to benefit it that day, then that's what's going to be utilized. That's the genius of this technology. It actually works across all plants. It works across all plants, all plant types. The frequencies go out. The plant, from day to day, its environment changes. Its mineral content changes. Its needs change, and so it absorbs from the water the frequencies that it needs that day. And so its efficiency becomes better and better and better and better and better and better. And if you've been to my website and if you've seen any of my pictures, they're jaw-dropping, because it's Kiminasi control. And the difference is like, it's like two different worlds. Meanwhile, every one of those fields are side by side. Same location, same farm. They're like scientific trials, but most of them were all purchased, because we told the farmer, you just need to buy enough to do a comparison, because if you don't compare, you're never going to believe it. It's too unbelievable. The results are just too fascinating.
Does there come a point where the plant sort of like completely equals out with the nutrients that they're getting, and they sort of like it's like you're not getting like a crazy growth of something, but they sort of, I don't know, get to
what again out? we've been out and delivering for over a year now, and we've seen 100% increase in production. Can you go beyond 100%? Of course, I'm sure you could, but we don't know what to expect. We don't know what. We just haven't been disappointed with any of our sales, any of our
How does it normally, how long does it normally take to transform, let's say a brownfield site?
A what site?
A site where there has been waste, for example, or let's say we were to take the land that a landfill site was on. Would that be something that we could transform? Not necessarily for plant growth, but for soil health.
If it's a farming site, well, it would have to be, because the technology was developed for plants. So it's not like you would put this on a field and then expect the field to improve. It's the interaction between the plant and the field that helps the plant and helps the field. It's nature has this natural ability of fixing itself, and we have discovered all of the main, really like the real crux, communication radio waves that assist nature. That's the heart of it. But if they're not farming, if they're not growing something, then, of course, if we went into the forest, right, and it was a forest that was in pretty bad shape because people were dumping there.
Yeah, let's say.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that using our technology in that forest, we would have to run irrigation into that forest. Okay. And we'd have to stop the dumping, because you can't keep polluting and then expect that it's going to get better. So you stop the dumping, you put the good water in there, and things will turn around. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fascinating for me because, looking at the health of the planet, the majority of the planet that has been damaged has been used for something else, or something has been removed from it. So if you look at the illegal logging that has been happening, or if you look at the illegal dumping that has been happening around the world, the
Right.
challenge is, what do we do with these sites? One task is, of course, to have these incredible fields growing the kinds of foods that will keep us healthy, preventatively managing that, reducing the chemical content in the actual fertilizers that are going out, and the food that we're eating, and the hormone disruption that we're experiencing.
Right.
That in itself is a full cycle of cause and effect. But coming to transforming environments which have been affected by pollution, air pollution, groundwater pollution. I think there's a huge opportunity there to understand what we can do, even if we were running the water through rivers, or if we're running them through streams, and then sort of like irrigating spaces with that.
Well, we've experienced using very horrible stream water in certain locations in South America. Saline water, high saline content water, which is so damaging to plants. And yet, as with our frequencies, with our microtransmitter system, the plants are just doing better. And so we know that overall, with time, there's going to be there's a short-term benefit, and there's going to be a long-term extreme benefit, worldwide. And we're doing our part to contribute to make the world a healthier, better place.
Yeah, totally. And I really appreciate that. We've got a really interesting question. That is, if weeds are endemic, should we leave them alone? That's from Hasib Sheikh, who shared that. Thanks, Hasib. Getting rid of exotic or invasive species of weeds, is that okay or not okay? What's your perspective on that?
You know what? I'm not the expert in this area, but I can tell you from speaking with agronomists that are the experts, and speaking to diverse agronomists, there's different schools of thought. So I'll answer that question with the answers that I've been provided. Okay, because I'm an investigator, so I'm the one who asks the questions because I'm doing my homework. But I ask the professionals, and two agronomists specifically said that weeds are a signaling system.
Right.
If weeds are showing up, then it's a signaling system that there's missing nutrients in the soil. And I found that pretty unique. He said if you applied the correct nutrients into the soil, the weeds would naturally just go away. And you speak to a farmer about this, and he'll look at you like you're speaking a very foreign language. Some farmers who are into organic farming have agreed, and it makes sense to them. For myself, logically it makes sense, but I can't say 100%. I would refer again to the professionals. Other agronomists that I've spoken to have said, look, weeds are a necessity, because what they actually do is they pull nutrients they pull nutrients up, right? Because the nutrients are deeper into the ground because the topsoil has been pretty much depleted, right? This is the mindset of what's going on out there, because they see, these soils, they look completely drained, they look completely depleted. And what these other agronomists that I interviewed said was the weeds are needed to pull up the nutrients, and then the plant now has access to those nutrients,
which you wouldn't otherwise.
Which you wouldn't have.
Mycelial layer or that kind of like, connection point that
exactly.
brings the nutrients up to the level where whatever other plants need it can actually share it.
Exactly. And then with all these agronomists, and I've spoken to at least 30, maybe 35, right? And they're all very intelligent people. But what I've come to realize is that there's so much confusion in this industry. And as an investigator, right? As an investigator, especially a criminal investigator, okay? I am who I am, right? So as a criminal investigator, when there's a lot of confusion in an area, okay, then it was intentionally designed that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, because whenever there's a lot of confusion, that's when you can steal money or take advantage financially.
Smoke screens.
Yeah, because it's take out all the confusion, make everything crystal clear, okay, and all of a sudden things just run smoothly. So what I started doing is I actually started just investigating, the industry as an investigator, and I realized that the industry is designed with a high disadvantage to the farmers. The inventors who come up with great inventions get very little money because they have to sell their inventions or their patents to distributor organizations, because without those distributor organizations, they can't get their product out there. The farmer then pays top dollar for whatever technologies, whether it's chemicals or whatever it is, okay? And they pay top dollar, and they don't always get the best products. And the confusion in my professional investigation, okay, has been maintained by the whole distributor system, internal, in the middle. So the guy in the middle is the one who's making all the money. And as long as
everybody in the process.
And what?
And confusing everybody in the process.
Definitely creating a lot of confusion, and I looked at all of this and I said, okay, well, we're not going to get involved in that game. We're not going to do it that way. So what we did was we created our own distribution system, and we evened out the playing field across the board. The farmers get a tremendous benefit. They pay for something that's going to, and the exchange of what they're paying for the product that they're getting is going to generate so much money for them that they can finally breathe. And over time, they'll realize they don't need to use as many chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, all this other stuff, so they can breathe actually healthier air, And so that's the main benefit, to the farmer. Financially, he will be rewarded, which is something he hasn't seen in many, many years. The inventor, Mr. Balmelli, and his team, okay, are being rewarded, because without them, we wouldn't have what we have. And they are the only people in the world that can produce this technology. They're the only people in the world that have the equipment to do it. the equipment doesn't exist anywhere else in the world.
Wow.
So
to test out the water and to test out the machinery, or to create the machinery itself?
The actual machinery itself doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It was equipment that he had to modify and program. It's just to give you an example, right? And see, I'll give you an analogy. Imagine taking a Dell computer, right? Are you familiar with Dell?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
More of a MacBook person, but yeah, Dell.
No problem. So fine. Imagine taking a Mac, a Mac computer, and saying, okay, this thing runs pretty good, but it doesn't do what I need it to do. Okay, so you have to change out some of the equipment so that it does certain types of calculations a little differently, right? And then you have to reprogram the entire operating system,
right?
So that it's using a program language that only you know. Nobody else in the world knows it. And so I can tell you that it's not a computer system, but that's the concept, right? So the machinery exists no place else in the world. No one in the world can reverse engineer this technology. It is protected really by lock and key and safe. And so it's been protected so that it continues to deliver what it's delivering to the benefit of mankind,
rather than the pockets of 2 people or 3 people or 1 person who decides that they want all the money for themselves.
Exactly. And then I was responsible for the distribution system. And so I designed a distribution system where everyone involved benefits, but the main person that benefits is the public and the farmer. They benefit more than anyone, because even with every sale that happens, we take 10% of our sales and we reinvest them back into the communities where those sales occurred. So there's a whole humanitarian side to helping the public.
I think that's the thing about social enterprise, or business today going forward, where it's no longer just about lining someone's pockets. It's about understanding what social, environmental impact we can have at the same time. We talk about, triple bottom line. Maybe there's quadruple, there's, tenfold increase in the multiple stakeholders that can benefit from, one act of creation that we have. So I think there's a huge amount there for us to unpick. And I think, there's so many more innovations and inventions where, your products have come from. So I'm excited about where you're going to take it. Any asks that you have of our audience?
Yeah, you know what? I would ask the audience, if they visit our website at harvestharmonics.com and they like what they see, okay, start demanding it from their grocers. Start demanding it from their local farmers, because it really comes from them. The public needs to start demanding, what they want, and whatever they want, they get. That's a given.
Final question, and it's come in from Ishita in the audience, who's asked, can this technology lead to the soil degradation because of increased rates of nutrient absorption by plants? What steps do you recommend to farmers?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. So I'm going to use a term. I hate to use science terms. I'm not a very science person. I'm a financial mind, and I'm a very caring person. But when it comes to the science, I understand it. So I'll try and keep this simple. There's a term called CEC. It means cation exchange capacity. It is a measurement of a combined a combination of several minerals and nutrients in the soil. Okay, and so whenever you do a soil test, they look for CEC. They look for the CEC formula, right? And what we have consistently seen is that if you take side by sides with Kiminasi and control, and you do a CEC at the beginning, a CEC analysis at the beginning, and then go through the farming operation, and at the end of the season, they do another CEC analysis at the end, the soil on the Kiminasi side, the CEC is always higher. Always. So in other words, we are taking less nutrients out of the soil and we're getting more production out of the soil. And so that's the reason why we know environmentally, it's just a matter of time. We are going to turn around this environment. Tia, I am super, super confident. Okay. I'm one of these people that I don't say things that, I take what I say, very, very important, because my word is so important to me. I tell you things. If I say something, it is a truth. I have no issues with what we are doing with the soil, because we are consistently improving the quality of the soil consistently. And so that's one of the things that we tell the farmers: do the soil test before and do the soil test after, and tell us what you've noticed. And then that's when they start realizing that the quality of their soil went up. They got more production. They got better quality fruits and vegetables, and they can't explain it, because when they compare it to the other side of the field where they didn't use our technology, the soil conditions went down, and they have to keep adding more fertilizer.
Which is the reason why you keep on getting these sort of increases and increasing amounts of desertification, because you're increasingly, raping the soil of the nutrients that it has. And I think that is our deepest challenge. How do we create, methods that are appropriate for the environment, that do not increase more depletive actions, but increase the potential for access, reliability, affordability? I mean, if I think about the 2 billion people below the poverty line, I want to think about them eating Kiminasi food. Like, that's the level at which I want to have people eating amazing, healthy, nutritious food. And, I think that Kiminasi is one of the examples of the kinds of technologies that are out there to encourage people to think beyond chemicals, beyond, nutrient depletion, and actually nutrient amplification. So, I think there's a beautiful balance there for our audience to go and explore your website. I'm just sharing the website on the actual screen right now. And, thank you, Frank, for the opportunity to investigate this industry in a way that we haven't yet. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to explore what health preventatively means, like the example of your mum.
Yeah.
And finding out, that there are opportunities for us to go and explore food that is healthier than what we're getting right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on the show and to be part of Replenish Earth. I mean, I'm excited with what you're doing, and I want to say that I was blessed to get involved in this because of my mom, and I was blessed to have her for another 7 years. She did recently pass, and it was her decision at this point to say it was time to go, and I just want to tell you that in honor of my mom, I'm going to continue to do what I set out to do, because it was a passion of hers also when she saw what we had discovered together. And so thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And thank you for allowing me to share part of my life with your public.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. And now I just wanted to say thank you, all of you, for attending the Replenish Earth series. We've got incredible amounts of small actions that you can take to become a replenisher too. Participate in today's Replenish challenge, which is called Rise to Replenish. You can find out about them in our Instagram. You can follow the theme. Today's theme is Second Life, and we've introduced this activity with a chance to learn about making homemade paper. Why not? Today, I pledge to innovate and give a second life to my waste by reusing it, repurposing it, and recycling it. So it really gives us an opportunity to learn how we can take the resources that we have at home and repurpose them. That's the whole point of Second Life. Thank you all very much for your time. Looking forward to seeing you at the next live. And take a moment to recognize what kind of nutrients are in your food and what you would like to explore further from Harvest Harmonics.